Shang-chi.
Shang.
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 S-H-A-N-G. Shang.
That's what I said. Oh, you can turn it up? Yeah, you can hear me.
Shang-chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is the brand new Marvel movie, and to be honest, this was one of the Marvel films I had very little interest going into. The trailers didn't impress me at all, and I was really looking forward to Marvel doing a style of movie like this, a martial arts, fantasy type epic, and I just didn't think they were going to nail it at all. The trailers looked very computerized, it looked very CGI heavy, and even though there is CGI and Marvel conventions and stuff you'd find in this movie, this is a film sort of you on the surface is your average Marvel movie. And to be honest, I was kind of gladly surprised that this movie completely fulfilled its complete potential and made not only just a fun Marvel movie that had its signature humor and action, but went completely above and beyond with a really innovative origin story that has some of the most breathtaking and most vibrant action sequences I've seen in a superhero film. And the thing is, this movie doesn't necessarily feel like a superhero movie, which is something I loved. Sort of the inspiration from Black Panther in terms of the way it delves into its cultures. This movie dives into a fantasy culture that's very oriental, and it kind of feels like a foreign movie that was given a blockbuster budget. And you can tell behind this movie did the best effort they could to utilize that entire budget. And Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings really, really impressed me. This is one of Marvel's probably best efforts, and I was pretty much super impressed with this movie from one action scene in the opening onwards. This movie really, really shines and above most of the Marvel movies because it's a martial arts fantasy epic the way it should be done. This definitely feels inspired by movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and you can tell. Let's talk about the action sequences for a minute because they're amazing. They shot wonderfully, there's some very nice long takes, but mostly the choreography and the way it's directed is very swift and fluid and stylized. The colors bleed off the screen, but they don't look unrealistic. And even though the third act of the film is filled with a lot of CGI, because it's a fantasy, because the characters are moving in obscure ways and they're doing these superhero stuff, it doesn't necessarily feel as unrealistic as it is because it's choreographed and directed marvelously like those classic sort of Chinese. It feels like a Chinese sort of anime actually in the way it's done, and I just love the way this movie was shot and everything like that. But the story wise as well, this movie also tells a story that feels again like something from the culture it is trying to portray. And that's something I really, really loved about the movie is the way it's told. It's told in this non-linear way. We get a lot of flashbacks that sometimes the flashbacks do bog on the pace, and I was like, okay, we're done with the flashbacks now. And there is a lot of exposition explaining the backstory of the characters or the backstory of this mystical world it's exploring. And there's a lot of backstory to this movie, but it's all done in a way that feels like it's naturally progressing. We learn things at the time we should learn them, and maybe we learn them in surprising ways. Especially that links into the actual main character, Shang-Chi, who Simu Liu, fantastic in the movie. He's not really had a big major film role before, and he's a brilliant hero that is inspiring. He's just this normal guy who has this sort of big family issue, and I really loved it. You also have Tony Leung as the villain. I'm not going to spoil what villain he plays in case you don't know, but he is definitely one of the best Marvel villains. You understand exactly why he was doing what he was doing, and the entire family conflict between these two characters and between other characters around made it investing. And the thing is, you don't learn everything about the characters straight away. In the first act of the movie, I was kind of thinking, where is this going? I don't really know much about the characters or the story around them. But from one action sequence onwards, I was like, I'm intrigued. And I knew why it told me very little early on. So then when we learn more interesting things happening, we can feel the development happening. And it was really, really well done in terms of the way it paced out this story. And it certainly added to this style it was going for, and everything involving the style of this movie, the oriental feeling, the capturing of the martial arts mastery is honestly handled astonishingly, and you can tell that there was hardly any studio interference within this film. And even though there are references to other Marvel movies, they don't. It just feels like a little bit of exposition, and it also has one of the best uses of end credit scenes that isn't that important to the movie, but just sets up nicely something for the future. I have to praise the score as well. The score is very great. It feels classical, and I really liked some of the song choices as well they used. Some of them were done for comedic effect, and there is a surprising amount of comedy in this movie that does work, and there's also a surprising amount of drama that also lands really, really well and actually makes you care about the characters on display, not just the heroes, but the villains and the world around them. There is an interesting fantasy world that feels developed upon. There's some great surprises linking to other MCU movies, but nothing that feels like it's connecting too heavily where the movie forgets to be its own thing, because I think this movie is definitely one of Marvel's best standalone projects they've ever done. It's so unique and vivid, and the action sequences are so vibrant and gorgeously filmed. They're exciting, they're intense, and I really love this movie. It has a few small issues here and there, a few little things that don't add up perfectly fine, and there is some iffy CGI in a few places towards the end, but overall, I just loved Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings. It's everything I want a Marvel movie to be, pretty much. Something unique, something different, exploring something new, but still following a pretty basic formula, but in a way that feels fresh. As I said, it feels like a foreign movie given a blockbuster budget. Everything about how it's helmed felt very classical in its storytelling, but at the same time, its filmmaking felt very modern. I generally had a blast with this movie, and it really impressed me. Having very little expectations going in, and being one of the few Marvel movies I was like, I don't really care if I see this. I'm so glad I did, because to be honest, I really, really liked it, and I think the majority of people who go to this movie will like it as well, and will have an appreciation for what it's trying to tell. And I had a blast with this movie. It has stunning action set pieces that will keep you on the edge of your seat, and it has great character and world building that feels unique for this franchise, and just as its own martial arts fantasy epic. It's a complete blast. So overall, I'm going to give Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings an A-. I'm also going to give this movie an 86%. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of Shang-Chi, if you've seen it.
You got this.
Thank you.
And of course, thanks for watching. Make sure to check out my letterbox down below. There are loads more movie reviews and thoughts on movies on there. And goodbye.